Okay, what if you could stop a full-blown emotional spiral before it even gets started? Well, there's this really powerful science-backed idea called the 90-second rule, and it promises exactly that, a way to get back in the driver's seat right when you feel like you're about to lose control. So let's dive into how this actually works. So let me just throw this out there. What if I told you that the actual physical feeling of anger only lasts for 90 seconds? I know, it sounds kind of crazy, right? But this whole idea is based on what's really happening inside our brains and our bodies. And honestly, if it's true, getting a handle on this could completely change how we deal with our emotions.
I mean, we've all been there, you know? Someone says something, maybe they cut you off in traffic, and bam! You feel it instantly. Your face gets hot, your heart starts pounding, and this wave of pure, raw emotion just washes over you. It feels like it's taking over everything. But what's really going on under the hood?
Well, that feeling actually has a name. It's called the stress flush. The second we get triggered, our brain just dumps a bunch of stress chemicals, like adrenaline, right into our bloodstream. Now, the most important thing to get here is that this is not a personal failure. It's not a character flaw. It's just a purely physiological, automatic reaction. It's just our body doing what it's wired to do. So that leads to the big question. How long does that chemical rush actually stick around? And the science on this is pretty specific. It takes just about 90 seconds for all those chemicals to get processed and completely flushed out of your system. That's it, a minute and a half. The biological part of the emotion has a super short, defined lifespan. Isn't that wild? And that, of course, brings up the most obvious question, right? If the chemicals are totally gone in 90 seconds, then why on earth do we stay mad for a whole afternoon? How does that feeling drag on for hours, or sometimes even days? Clearly, something else has got to be keeping it going. And here's the answer. The culprit isn't in our body anymore. It's in our head. It's the story. You know, that mental movie we start playing on a loop, rehearsing the argument, going over what they said, thinking about how unfair it was. And get this. Every single time we replay that story, we're basically telling our brain, hey, do it again. And it releases a fresh batch of those same stress chemicals. We are literally re-triggering ourselves over and over again. So this all leads to a moment of choice, a fork in the road. Think of it like this. There are two paths. Path number one, you let the chemicals flush. You feel the trigger, you notice the physical sensations, the hot face, the tight chest, but you don't grab onto the story. You just watch the wave rise and then watch it fall. And in 90 seconds, you're back to calm. Then there's path number two. You replay the story. You grab that thought bubble, you relive the whole drama in your head, and, you guessed it, you start that 90-second clock all over again with a fresh dose of stress. So the big question is, how do we actually choose path number one? How do we do this in the heat of the moment? Well, the solution is actually a pretty simple but really powerful four-step process. So let's break down exactly how to master that 90-second window. Okay, step one is just to acknowledge it. Just say to yourself, okay, I'm triggered right now. That's it. Step two, start a mental timer for 90 seconds. This gives you a finish line. Now, step three is a big one. Observe. Just turn your attention inward and notice the physical feelings. Is your stomach in a knot? Are your shoulders tense? Just notice these things like a scientist with zero judgment. And finally, step four, for just those 90 seconds, you consciously choose to let that story, that thought bubble, just pop and float away. And let's be super clear here. Your only job during these 90 seconds is to just watch what's happening in your body. You're not trying to solve the problem. You're not planning what you're going to say next. You are simply riding out that chemical wave, just observing the physical feelings until they naturally disappear. You know, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this simple phrase: don't feed the story. Think of that initial trigger like a single match. By itself, it'll just burn out in 90 seconds. The only way it turns into a huge forest fire is if we start throwing the logs of our own thoughts onto it. Your job is simple. Just starve the fire. And when you really get this, it changes everything. That intense 90-second rush, it stops being a moment of weakness, and it becomes your window of opportunity. It's your single greatest moment of power. It's that little bit of space between what happens to you and how you respond. And in that space, you get to choose. You can let your emotions drive the bus, or you can decide to be the one in the driver's seat. So I'll just leave you with this question. We all have them, right? Those go-to stories that are guaranteed to get a rise out of us. So as you go through your week, just think about it. What's one story you could choose to stop feeding? What's one 90-second wave you could decide to just ride out and see what it feels like on the other side?